The iron door slammed like a final heartbeat. Inside the dim corridor of Leavenworth Penitentiary, a tall, hollow-eyed man walked calmly toward the gallows. No struggle, no fear. Only the faint creak of the rope swaying above him. It was September 5th, 1930, Kansas. A crowd of guards gathered before dawn, their boots echoing across the concrete floor. The prisoner looked at them as if they were the ones condemned. His name was Carl Panzram, a man who claimed he had no soul and who confessed to murders across continents. Some proven, many suspected, all chilling. He once wrote, "I hate the whole human race. I would kill every person on earth if I could." But here's the paradox. Carl didn't fight his execution. He demanded it. He had spent most of his life locked inside cells, chased by guards, beaten by reformatories, and running from a society that he said created the monster he became. And as he stepped onto the platform, he smiled because he finally felt in full control. Stay until the end to learn why Carl Panzram invited his own execution and what his final act reveals about crime, punishment, and human darkness. Would you like to continue to the next part? The world Carl Panzram grew up in was a harsh one. This was rural Minnesota in the 1890s, a place shaped by hard winters, stricter parents, and a justice system that believed punishment was the only teacher. Child welfare laws were nearly non-existent. Reform schools operated like factories. Prisons used chains, silence rules, and physical correction. If you were poor, immigrant, or simply unlucky, the system didn't guide you. It swallowed you. Carl was born in 1891, the youngest of 6 children, in a struggling German-American farm family. By age 8, he was already in trouble. Small thefts, bad behavior, and the kind of aimless anger the era dismissed as wickedness. The Minnesota Evening Tribune wrote a line that captured that time perfectly. Boys who cannot be tamed at home must be straightened by the state. Carl was sent to the Minnesota State Training School, a place he described as a torture house. He later wrote that beatings, humiliation, and abuse were daily realities. For Carl, childhood wasn't innocence. It was survival. By his teens, Carl ran away dozens of times. He hopped freight trains, slept under bridges, and stole food to survive. Each time he was caught, authorities sent him to harsher institutions. This cycle, abuse, escape, crime, recapture, carved a deep hatred inside him. He believed the world showed him only violence, and he decided to answer with his own. But this is just the beginning. Because once he left the home for good, Carl Panzram didn't just drift into crime. He studied it, refined it, and carried it across states, oceans, and borders. Would you like to continue to the next part? By the early 1910s, Carl Panzram was a wanderer, a tall, muscular drifter with sharp blue eyes and a constant scowl. He used dozens of aliases. He broke into homes, stole boats, forged signatures, and carried weapons tucked into his coat. But what made him especially dangerous was his unpredictability. Carl didn't steal just for money, he stole for revenge, against a world he believed wronged him first. In 1915, police arrested him for burglary in the Dalles, Oregon. His response set the tone for the years to come. He destroyed the jail wall with a stolen saw, escaped, and burned the officer's house to ashes. Investigators struggled with him for one simple reason. America in the early 20th century had no national database, no DNA, and no centralized fingerprint system. If Carl crossed the state line, he vanished into thin air. But something else was happening too. Carl's crimes escalated. He began committing violent assaults, often against sailors or drifters he met near docks. He later claimed to have murdered men in New York, Connecticut, and across the Atlantic during a voyage to Africa. He wrote, "I was no good for anything except destroying. Police departments occasionally suspected him, But without shared communication, he slipped past every net. The first major clue came in 1920, when Carl burglarized the home of William Howard Taft, former US president. It was a bold move, and a foolish one. He stole Taft's handgun, cash, and jewelry. That handgun would later become a critical artifact, linking him to assaults across several states. But Carl had already disappeared again. Retention reset number 1, an unexpected artifact. In 1928, a night watchman named Henry McMahon was found dead at the Oregon State Penitentiary, beaten with an iron bar. It was a brutal but calculated attack. No wild rage, no panic, just precision. The guards suspected many inmates, but one prisoner stood out. Carl Panzram, inmate number 7390. He didn't hide, he didn't deny. And when investigators stepped into his cell, they found something chilling. Pages of handwritten notes, filled with confessions. But one detail didn't fit the story at all. Carl claimed he didn't kill McMahon out of anger. He said he did it because he wanted the death penalty, and this was the fastest way to get it. Would you like to continue to the next part? But something didn't fit. Investigators couldn't understand why a man would openly confess to murder, let alone dozens of them. That confusion ended when Carl handed them a long, disturbing manuscript, his life story, written in sharp, angry handwriting. One line read, "The only thanks you will ever get from me for your kindness is that I will kill you if I can." The confession wasn't just a list of crimes. It was a manifesto of rage against society, prisons, and humanity itself. Carl claimed responsibility for murders in several states, and even killings during a stint working for an oil company in Angola. Africa! The most shocking part wasn't the scale. It was the motivation. Carl wasn't asking for forgiveness or understanding. He wanted his execution scheduled quickly, without appeals. Retention reset number 2. A shift in perspective. Enter Henry Lesser, a young guard at the Washington, D.C. jail, who would change the historical record forever. Lesser wasn't like the others. He saw Carl not just as a criminal, but as a man shaped by brutality since childhood. One night, he quietly gave Carl a few dollars so he could buy snacks from the prison commissary. It was a small gesture, almost trivial. But to Carl, it was shocking. It was the first kindness he remembered receiving from any authority figure. In response, Carl handed Lesser hundreds of pages of confessions and reflections, writings that would become the backbone of the case and the future book Killer, a journal of murder. He told Lesser, "I want you to have this. Maybe someone someday will understand why I'm like this." Those pages revealed the turning point. Carl didn't fear death. He feared living in a cage again. And now, with a full confession and a murder charge he embraced, the court prepared for a trial unlike any in the era. Would you like to continue to the next part? The trial of Carl Panzram took place in 1929 in Kansas. He refused a lawyer. He refused witnesses. He refused any attempt at an appeal. When the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, Carl leaned forward and said, "I would kill you too, if I had the chance." The courtroom went silent. No one doubted he meant it. He was sentenced to death by hanging. "Killer laughs at his own sentence," read one headline. But behind the headlines was a man who felt he had already died long ago. Carl believed the system had taken everything from him as a child. An execution was simply the final transaction. Retention reset number 3, the symbolic artifact. After the sentence, Carl handed Henry Lesser one final object. The cell key the guard used every morning. He told him, "Remember me by this. It's the last door they'll ever close on me." On September 5th, 1930, at 6 a.m., Carl walked to the gallows at Leavenworth Penitentiary. The executioner hesitated, adjusting the rope. Carl snapped, "Hurry it up, you Hoosier bastard. I could hang a dozen men while you're fooling around." It was his final act, angry, defiant, and unrepentant. When the trapdoor opened, the rope jerked, and Carl Panzram's long, war with the world ended in silence. But the aftermath didn't vanish with him. His writings, raw, bitter, brutally honest, forced historians to question the role cruelty plays in shaping violence. Was Carl born evil, or was he made by the very institutions designed to rehabilitate him? The documents Henry Lesser preserved continue to challenge criminologists today. Because Carl Panzram was not just a serial killer, he was a Casey study in how unbroken cycles of abuse can forge unimaginable darkness. Would you like to continue to the final part? Carl Panzram's life forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Was he a monster born, or a child shattered by a system that replaced guidance with punishment? And if society creates a man who believes kindness is a trick, can justice ever truly be called justice? His story leaves us with one final question. Did the rope end his crimes? Or did the real crime occur decades earlier, in the shadows of a reform school that punished instead of protected? As you think about that, consider how many lost children in history followed similar paths, unseen until it was too late. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten stories like this, subscribe to Crimes Through Time for more mysteries buried in the past, and the lessons they still whisper to us today.